Hello, my name is Gail Bowser. I'm an independent consultant in the area of assistive technology and a member of the Quiet leadership team. And I want to welcome you today to a brief overview of the Quiet Assistive Technology Consideration Indicators. As you begin to look at the quality indicators for assistive technology consideration area, you'll see one thing that is pretty unique about the consideration indicators, and that is that assistive technology consideration is mentioned in IDEA as a requirement for every IEP team. That means that every student who receives specially designed instruction under IDEA must have some portion of their IEP meeting dedicated to talking about whether or not the student might benefit or need assistive technology. The indicators themselves help to describe what that might look like. And they also can be used for other students who may have disabilities but not qualify for services specifically under IDEA. So students who have a 504 plan are a good example of that. These are the 7 quality indicators, or a brief summary of each one. I'm going to walk through them with you now, but I want to encourage you to read the actual quality indicators themselves because they contain much more information than we can cover in this short presentation. The first indicator talks about the fact that assistive technology must be considered for all students with disabilities who receive specially designed instruction. We've already talked about that. But the next 2 indicators really focus on the kind of conversations that you might have as a team when you are considering a student's need for assistive technology. We believe that a high quality consideration process is a collaborative decision-making process so that everyone can share their collective knowledge and skills and also have an opportunity to participate in the decision-making process about whether or not a student's going to need assistive technology. And that decision-making process and that collaboration should very much, if possible, include the student themselves. Assistive technology consideration should be based on the goals and objectives and curricular and extracurricular activities that the team has planned in order to help the student make progress in the general education curriculum or whatever curriculum they participate in. And I think the message here is that the consideration decision should happen after goals and objectives and other plans for the educational program have been made. Those decisions also should be based on data that team members have gathered and analyzed. So we want to know what the barriers are to the student's performance, what the student's present level of academic and functional performance is, things like that. And that data should be very much a part of any consideration decision. Once the team begins to look at all that data and the goals and objectives that have been planned for the student, it's also important to think of a range of assistive technology. Sometimes the simplest tool that can overcome the barrier is really the best tool. So we want to try a range of devices in order to do a high quality consideration of assistive technology needs. There's a lot of big ideas about assistive technology consideration, but I want to talk to you today about just a few of those and hope that you will dig further into the quality indicators for assistive technology materials that are available on the website or in the Quiet book. So the first big idea I want to talk about today, because I think it's such an important idea, is that that IDEA, tells us what to do, that we must consider a student's need for assistive technology, but it doesn't tell us how to do it. So consideration is by law embedded in the special education process and mandated as a part of the 5 special factors that each IEP team must consider. It must be considered in the development and review of all IEPs, but how to do that isn't defined by law. So what are the characteristics of high quality consideration? First of all, it's a brief process. A consideration discussion in the context of an IEP meeting probably shouldn't take more than 5 or 10 minutes. And it should be based on information that different team members have brought to the meeting and their perceptions of the needs of the child. It should never be disability specific. So whether a student has a articulation disorder or severe multiple disabilities, every student's IEP should include a conversation about assistive technology and how it can benefit people with that type of disability. Assistive technology is based on functional abilities. The definition of assistive technology excuse me, is any item, piece of equipment, or product, no matter where it comes from, that improves the functional capabilities of an individual with a disability. So a consideration discussion should always talk about what are the functional abilities that this student has that may need some extra support in the form of assistive technology. As we have that kind of conversation, it's important to think about a few things. First of all, the conversation should relate to assistive technology devices and services. One of the things that we know clearly from experience and from research is that only providing an assistive technology device and hoping the student's performance will improve is an ineffective way to do things. It's important to also think about the assistive technology services that the student will need in order to benefit from the use of assistive technology. And those services are listed in IDEA, and they include not only assessment, but training for family and student, training for staff and supporters, and a number of other items that make it possible for a student to effectively use their assistive technology device. It requires that IEP team members be informed about the nature of consideration and about the basic assistive technology that might benefit their particular student. It doesn't mean that every IEP team member has to know a lot about all kinds of assistive technology, but they do have to know how basic technology might benefit a student with this particular kind of disability. If they don't have that information, then it's important to include some team member who does have that information so that the consideration action can be thoughtful and effective in choosing a tool that will be most useful for a student with a disability. Assistive technology consideration, it includes an exploration of a range of tools and strategies. So we might be talking about a simple pencil grip or an electronic keyboard for writing. We might be talking about a single switch that says one word or one phrase for a student who has communication needs, or we might be talking about a high-tech complicated device. Assistive technology consideration finally involves thoughtful gathering and use of meaningful data. We want to think about what kinds of changes we hope to see in the students' performance, and then collect data both pre and post about their performance before they had assistive technology and afterward. That may not, however, require a formal AT assessment. If the team knows the student well and has the information that they need in order to make a good consideration decision, IDEA does not require that a formal assessment be completed. And part of that will depend on your district process and how your district views this whole consideration discussion. If something's used by a whole class, for instance, if every child in the classroom has a Chromebook, there are many kinds of accessibility features that might benefit everybody in the class, but might be required for an individual student with a disability in order to benefit from a free and appropriate public education. If, even though everybody in the class has the technology, if one student requires that technology and needs to use it in order to perform certain tasks, that kind of technology should be considered assistive technology and included in the student's IEP. There are three possible results of AT consideration. The team might decide, yes, we think the student does need assistive technology and we know what's needed and we can document that in the IEP. The team might say, no, the student is making adequate progress and we don't think assistive technology is needed at this time. If you say no in an IEP meeting, it's really a good idea, if possible, to document that decision somewhere, whether it be in meeting notes or some IEP forms require a discussion of the decision not to provide assistive technology. So there's a whole range of ways you could document it. But one thing that's important to remember is that you will again consider the student's need for assistive technology in the coming year, in the next IEP meeting. The third decision that a team could make is that we don't really have enough information about what is needed for to make a good consideration decision. And in that case, the team would decide to take some actions to get more information. When more information is needed, here are some possible steps for further action. That further action might include developing a plan for a trial period of equipment that's already available in the classroom or school. Another kind of action might be asking for assistance from a district AT team or a district AT leader of some sort, basically getting more expertise contributed to the IEP team in the IEP meeting. You might also, if you don't have the expertise that you need, you might be referring for a further in-depth assessment of the student's skills. You might refer to a content area specialist within the district. So if the issue is about math, you might want to refer to the math curriculum director or the math teacher to find out what kinds of tasks the student might be involved in and whether there might be assistive technology that would benefit the student in performing math tasks. Another action might be referral to another agency for AT assistance. In my part of the country, many of the education service agencies provide more in-depth assistive technology services. So you might go to an agency like that or even a hospital or clinical setting, depending on the needs of the student. The trick is that the team needs to decide what information is needed, what was lacking in their ability to make a decision, and then use strategies like these to get more information so that a good decision can be made. We've talked about some big ideas about assistive technology, but what are your next steps? Some suggested actions would be that you as a team or you as an individual interested in assistive technology in your district review a sampling of IEPs and see what percentage of students have AT included. How accurate is the documentation? Do you see IEPs that say no, the student doesn't need assistive technology and that there's actually assistive technology included in their day or some other version of that? So how's your district doing in developing IEPs that consider the need for assistive technology? You might also include AT consideration guidance in your agency's procedural guidelines, in your special education handbook, or your operating guidelines, or your guidelines about how to write IEPs. Assistive technology should at least be mentioned since it is a required portion of the IEP under IDEA. And finally, you might provide professional learning opportunities about AT consideration. You might provide it in multiple formats. There might be a tip sheet or a video like this, or face-to-face training. Multiple formats means that we'll reach multiple people in different ways. So with some direct instruction about what AT consideration should look like and at how it's done by your agency or in your school district. There are lots more resources about AT consideration. There are specific resources that are included with this module. So a document that includes the full text of the quality indicators for assistive technology consideration. That includes also the quiet self-evaluation matrix for AT consideration, which you might use to take a look at how your agency is doing. And for every one of the quiet areas, there is some kind of form or tool that might help you implement that area. And in this case, that tool is called the Assistive Technology Consideration Guide. So those should be part of your module that goes with this short video. There are also a wide range of supplemental resources that address assistive technology consideration. And these are just a few of my favorites. First of all, the Georgia Department of Assistive Technology on their website in their assistive technology section have a number of tools and resources that you can use to think about assistive technology consideration. The Ohio project, OCALI, also has assistive technology training modules, and they're designed to be done online. One of them is a consideration module. The Texas Assistive Technology Network also has a training module on assistive technology consideration. And the Wisconsin Assistive Technology Initiative has a module or some online forms and resources called From Consideration to Assessment. So you can see all 4 of those resources are at the State Department of Education level. There's a brand new resource that you may not be familiar with, even if you've seen some of the other ones. The University of Illinois at Chicago has just posted an interactive website that's called AT Process in Schools. And it addresses the process of beginning with assistive technology, considering the need for assistive technology. And then one of the things that I like about it a lot is that it demonstrates the cyclical nature of assistive technology consideration. So it uses the circle as a way of describing assistive technology consideration and the processes that are involved. Finally, these are the big resources for Quiet. This is you'll see the Quiet website address here. You'll see the Quiet book, Quality Indicators for Assistive Technology. and that's available from Cast Publishing. Also, we want to invite you anytime you have a question about the quality indicators to contact the Quiet Leadership Team at this email address, and somebody will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found this video useful and a good introduction to the topic of assistive technology consideration. I'll look forward to seeing you online and other places.